Zhu has conceded defeat.
Security chief says investigation still underway into missing booksellers.
At least 20 people killed after Islamist militants stormed a hotel in Burkina Faso. Taiwan is set to elect its first female leader as the ruling Kuomintang party have conceded defeat moments ago, even before ballot counting has finished.
With pro-independence Tsai Ing-wen set to step into power, analysts believe it will usher in a new era of cross-strait relations. Kuomintang leader Eric Chu bowed and apologized to his supporters and announced he has resigned as party chairman. Chu only managed to gather 3.23 million ballots as of 7 p.m. His opponent, Tsai Ing-wen of the Democratic Progressive Party, has doubled the amount of votes with 6.46 million. James Song of the People First Party, a splinter group of the Kuomintang, just had more than 1 million ballots. 8 hours after opening, more than 15,000 voting stations across Taiwan closed at 4 p.m. and ballot counting immediately got underway. There were no surprises, as Democratic Progressive Party leader Tsai Ing-wen gathered the bulk of the votes. For the past few months, the 59-year-old has been tipped as the island nation's next president and make history as its first ever female leader. After casting her ballot in New Taipei City this morning, Tsai, in her usual soft-spoken style, called for a united sense of national identity. I believe it's time to show to the world that the Taiwan people have a consensus on our national identity, Tsai addressed voters. It's only rational and reasonable that the national flag represents our identity and should not be repressed. The remarks are directed at a Taiwanese singer who was forced to apologize for waving a Republic of China flag during a promotional video. For the second time in history, Tsai is set to return the pro-independence opposition DPP to power after Chen Shui-bian took office in 2000. Despite a looming defeat, her main rival, Eric Chu of the ruling Kuomintang party, still put on a brave face as he arrived at a polling station with his wife. Chu, who had initially ruled out running for the presidency, said he and other supporters of Kuomintang will stand until the last second. President Ma Ying-jeou, who will step down on the 20th of May after 2 4-year terms in office, made a last-ditch call to the anyone who truly embraces the Republic of China will never pursue Taiwan independence, Ma proclaimed in a thinly veiled attack on the opposition camp. With the presidential race a foregone conclusion, the focus now turns to whether the DPP can obtain a majority in a 113-seat legislature, a feat no opposition party has ever achieved. The results of the landmark elections today are being closely watched by Beijing, with many believing it will usher in a new era of cross-strait relations. K-pop singer Cho Chi-yu, who has been banned by the mainland, has apologized over a flag-waving incident, which many see symbolizes Taiwan's independence.
But Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou has stressed that Chow did nothing wrong and an apology was not necessary. A somber-looking Taiwanese singer Chow Zu-yu was seen dressed in black as she apologized in a video through her South Korean entertainment agency posted on YouTube. The 16-year-old said she's sorry and should have apologized earlier, but did not know how to face the public. Chow went on stressing that there's only one China and the two sides of the straits belong to one unified entity, adding that she's always been proud to be Chinese. Chow performs as part of the South Korean K-pop girl group Twice and had waved a national flag symbolizing Taiwan's independence on a TV show. The incident has sparked an uproar in China, with many criticizing her and was even banned by the mainland. But Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou has stressed that Chow doesn't need to apologize because she has done nothing wrong. Ma also believes Chow was forced to make the apology. Ma said he finds it unacceptable that Chow had apologized and gave a message to the singer that people support her and she has done nothing wrong. Nationalist Party presidential candidate Eric Chu also voiced his support for Chow and said the singer has been treated too cruelly. Meanwhile, Democratic Progressive Party presidential candidate Tsai Ing-wen has called for unity and said no one should tolerate having their freedom of expression suppressed.
Security Secretary Lai Tong-kwok said mainland authorities have not responded to the government's inquiries on the whereabouts of missing bookseller Li Bo. Lai hopes the mainland could give them a reply as soon as possible. Arthur Okiola reports.
With the administration being criticized over the lack of action being taken to determine the whereabouts of missing bookseller Li Bo, the city security chief again insisted that Beijing had been contacted.
The police has already requested their counterparts to provide information and are still waiting for their response.
Li, who has been missing along with 4 of his colleagues, has not been seen in the city since the 30th of December. His bookstore in Causeway Bay sold politically sensitive books critical of the central government, and it's believed that he is being detained across the border and that Beijing has been ignoring Hong Kong's request for information. On Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's announcement earlier this week of a review into the immigration ordinance and the way non-refoulement cases are handled, Lai said this was being done as a legal duty.
This is a kind of legal obligations that the Hong Kong SAR government have to carry out in accordance with the judgments of the Court of Final Appeal and the relevant provisions of our law. What we are now reviewing is how to carry out our duty more effectively.
Leung has said that if the review finds it necessary, Hong Kong will withdraw from its commitments to the International Convention Against Torture. Critics argue in the wake of the Li Bo case that this could be a further erosion of rights in the city. But Lai said there had been a sharp rise in cases of the refugee system being abused by applicants filing non-refoulement claims to stop them being deported while working here illegally. The security chief also pointed out that other jurisdictions have faced similar issues and are carrying out their own reviews on relevant laws. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Government officials continue to render their support to the policy address, which has been poorly received on many fronts. Welfare Chief Matthew Yeung said the initiatives are minute but important, while the Education Minister rejected claims that local students have been ignored. Vicky Wan reports.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's latest policy address is the worst of the 4 he has delivered, according to Hong Kong University's Public Opinion Program. Many feel it lacks concrete measures to assist the underprivileged, while skirting contentious issues such as retirement protection and standard working hour legislation. Speaking on a radio program, Labour and Welfare Secretary Matthew Yeung admitted the measures this year are minute, but insisted they will make a big difference if compounded together. Yeung believes the government will have a more concrete direction on labour and welfare policies next year.
We will certainly do our very best in the next year or so in order to come up with the way forward on the 3 highly controversial and very important labour relations issues, on retirement protection, on offsetting for MPF, as well as on standard working hours. Because the 3 issues are now being discussed, particularly for the standard working hours, we've got a high-level committee deliberating it, and is expected to put up a report to the chief executive in a few months' time. For retirement protection, we've just embarked on an intensive and extensive public consultation. It will take us up to at least middle of this year.
Meanwhile, the policy address also raised eyebrows by setting up a $1 billion scholarship for youngsters from Belt and Road countries to study in Hong Kong. Many feel the government should prioritize resources for local students instead of luring outsiders to the city. That's not the case, said Education Chief Edna Tse. On a separate radio show, he revealed the Bureau has also been sponsoring students to study abroad.
Last year is a starting point. We have sent 92 outstanding performing students to study overseas in the prominent, most successful universities around the world. And it costs a lot of money. Each one, maximum funding could be reaching $450,000 per year.
Explained the scholarship's purpose is to attract overseas teenagers to better understand the city.
Even though they go home, back to their home country, they'll be able to keep and enhance the link and network with Hong Kong so that they will be able to expand our students' opportunities for the future.
He believes local students can also benefit by increasing their international exposure. Vicky Wan, ATV News.
Turning overseas, at least 20 people have been killed after Islamist militants stormed an upscale hotel in Burkina Faso, used regularly by foreigners.
Security forces took back the hotel, killing 3 of the attackers in an operation that lasted several hours. Arthur Arkeola reports.
Wow, vous avez entendu ça? Ça, c'est du lourd.
Amateur footage caught the gunfire and explosions as security forces battled gunmen who stormed a hotel in a business district of Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. Witnesses said several masked men stormed the hotel, which is near the country's international airport, taking hostages after car bombs were set off outside and firing in the air to drive back crowds. Some said the gunmen had initially attacked a cafe nearby, where several bodies were later said to have been found. The 4-star Splendid Hotel is sometimes used by United Nations staff, as well as French troops battling Islamist militants in the region. Security forces say the fact that it was frequented by Westerners may have made it a target. After some intense gunfire, there was an hour of relative quiet as soldiers prepared to try and recapture the hotel. French special forces stationed in the country were involved in rescuing hostages. More than 30 hostages were later freed, among them the public works minister. France had earlier requested assistance from U.S. intelligence and surveillance in the city, and at least one representative from the U.S. military was at the hotel giving advice and assistance to French forces. Last month, the French embassy warned its citizens against traveling to a national park in the east of the country after threats from Malian jihadists threatening to kidnap foreigners. Authorities implemented an 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew following the attack. A monitoring group later said Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, or AQIM, claimed responsibility for the attack. The same group, which is Al-Qaeda's official branch in North Africa, last month called for Muslims in several countries, including Burkina Faso, to wage jihad. The attack marks the first time Islamist militants have attacked the West African nation's capital, although they have staged attacks across the border in Mali. In November, a luxury hotel in Mali was targeted by 2 attackers who killed 20 people. The siege also presents a challenge to President Roch-Marc Kabore, who was just elected in November. This afternoon, security forces announced that the operation to take back the hotel had been completed, with some of the attackers killed and the rest of the hostages freed.
Marines are missing after 2 Navy helicopters collided near the island of Oahu in Hawaii. The Coast Guard found out about the collision after civilians reported seeing a fireball in the sky.
We did not receive a mayday call. The Coast Guard was notified by a civilian on the beach who had seen the aircraft flying and then saw them disappear.
Dozens of aircraft and sea vessels searched the area, although efforts were hampered by strong winds and poor visibility from rainstorms. The Coast Guard said that with waves of up to 40 feet high, debris was being spread over a large area, making it incredibly difficult to find anything. Lee Faulkner, ATV News.
Turning to sports and in golf, Brand Snedeker takes a 1-stroke lead at the halfway mark of the Sony Open in Hawaii. The American played a bogey-free round of 5 under 65 to become sole leader after 36 holes. 2 strokes behind is Englishman Luke Donald, who sank one of his 5 birdies on the day at the 17th hole. Over